There you are. The more fun we make of it, the quicker it goes.
Do you know what I love is I would think the majority of the time people jump on to watch this, the first thing they see is you and I laughing. So that's got to be a good start, right?
Exactly. We
It's
always
always
start the same way. Haha, wait a minute. Are we live? Yes, we're live.
so StreamYard sneaks up on you. You click go live and it takes a couple of moments before. And so you're waiting going, yes. Hello, Susie Godsey.
Hello, Viv Adcock. Well,
Well,
today we have a very philosophical question. To foster or not to foster? That is the question.
that is the question, to be or not to be. Yes. So it's interesting because fostering conjures up so many, images, points of view, reactions, questions in people's worlds. It's an interesting journey, fostering, and some people can do it quite easily, and other people do it for a while and then they adopt an animal. And it does. It for me, it takes quite a unique individual to be able to foster, because you're there to contribute to that animal's life in any which way you can for as long as you can. And I can only speak from my own experience, but knowing that you're fostering, you are already aware of at some point this animal is going to go on to the next phase of its life. And we can mentally, logically compute that, but when it actually comes to the handing over of the animal to its new owners or to its forever home, can be quite an interesting journey. So what do you have to say to that, Susie?
Well, I was actually going to ask you if you developed, because I know you've fostered many, many, many greyhounds and successfully. And also you said that you always had a sense that you really were joyful about passing them on to their next journey. I just wanted to actually ask you, what tools did you have for that? Because I can see, like, I'm a foster failure, and I don't really have a lot of experience with it because I failed fostering. And so to really truly, I think my biggest thing with the fostering part is to engage without making it significant, because I can see myself, I was very much getting attached, and the idea of then passing the animal on really didn't feel so good. But what was interesting with my one-time foster failure, a year later, that dog actually made it very clear to me that my lifestyle and hers were not matching. And I was willing to give her up in that same day. And I did. And it all just went, it was magic. And I had no problem with that. So it's not that I couldn't do it. It's just, there's something there. So I wonder, like, what tools did you actually come up with for all this?
Yeah, and look, the thing with animals is they do evoke this intense emotional connection and bond and attachment that you so beautifully addressed, Susie, with how we make it significant, how we make it relevant. And this whole thing about, yes, we love animals because they invite us to quote unquote unconditional love, where there's no judgment, there's allowance. They don't care if you're having a bad hair day, or you've got your period, or, you're freaking out about something. They're just them. So number one, having a relationship with an animal does invite us on a very different, intimate, very vulnerable level to be who we truly be with an animal. And so a lot of the stuff that I found in the early days of fostering that was really sticking me was where I started to build this whole emotional relationship. And I started to have this, like you said, this attachment to them. And as try as you might not to, it was like, oh, look, they're so cute. And oh, they've done this today. And, and any win that you had with introducing an animal to a new, domestic situation, when you have a win, when the animal relaxes or the animal receives it, it's like, yes, there's a sense of achievement and accomplishment. And to be able to acknowledge that you've contributed to that kind of step in their life to build the rest of their life to be okay in a domestic situation rather than getting the emotional attachment and getting all caught up in the, whatever that is, whether it's ego or yes, I've done something, or, it's a real tightrope in some respects to keep your own self in check with, you're here to contribute to this animal's life as best as you can along its process, knowing at some stage you've prepared this animal as best as you can to hand it over to somebody else. And so I was always able to keep that part very firmly in my sights, that I am just a conduit. I'm just a transitional phase for these animals. And it doesn't mean that I didn't get to love each and every one of them with their own individual quirks and their own little weird things that they all have, But I think the main tool for me was very much being aware of where I was starting to get emotionally involved, because it has a different energy to it, rather than knowing that you're contributing. Contributing is, I suppose, in a way, for a parent that raises a child in a really wholesome way, they love that child, but they know at some stage that child is going to grow and be an individual, capable adult in an ideal world. And raising and fostering and handing over greyhounds is probably very similar in some respects for, raising children and knowing that at some stage they're going to fly the nest. So it is a very deeply personal journey with your own. Look at your needs behind it. Are you needing to rescue? Are you needing to save? Are you needing to fill a hole? Are you needing to feel good about yourself? Or is it really, I just desire to contribute to this animal's life and the family that it's going to? So yeah, that's my part that I would say. So the tools would have been very much, every time I started to feel myself kind of get involved, and when you're getting involved, because everything starts to get heightened and you get stirred up and you're more reactive and you get more, I guess, protective, and you get a bit, I started to get a bit silly about things. And I'm like, hang on, this is not actually, contributing to this animal. I'm starting to develop something that I'm needing something from this animal, rather than no, I'm here to contribute. And that is, like I say, that the tightrope. With some dogs, it was really easy to do that. And other dogs, it was more challenging. And they were the dogs that I would have tears saying goodbye to them, but it's tears of gratitude that you've been part of that animal's life, and gratitude that it's actually going on to something else. And there is a little bit of, I was really enjoying that dog's company, but I knew full well that made space for more animals to come in that I could contribute to and get out there. And that was something that I really kept a strong connection to, knowing that I'm able to facilitate more animals rather than one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. The idea is like, what is your motivation? I think you said it so beautifully, and if that is really the awareness, what you have to offer, I think that's so beautiful. I wondered too, if like when you were just talking about some animals, you had tears in your eyes and all that, if actually that also had to do with the individual animal, because I can see for the animals to really also get that sense of I'm only here temporary, or this is my home now, is probably equally an interesting journey for them, to really get used to somebody, to really start to trust in someone, and then to be passed on, to yet another situation. I would say some animals probably do that also in stride, and others maybe not so much, so yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's a really interesting point. I hadn't considered that before, because some of these animals came in and were just with us for 2 weeks. They'd already been adopted, but the family weren't ready. And so they needed a little halfway house and I, with the tools of Talk to the Animals, I would always communicate with the animal that, this is just going to be, for a couple of weeks, or this is going to be until you're at a stage where you can mentally and emotionally cope with being in a house. So a lot of these animals have never set foot inside a house, or been with a family, or been in an environment where there's family house type noises. They've been kept in a cage, probably in a shed, for the majority of their life. So it's a big transition. But I was very clear from day one, and even the people that go to the initial rescuing of the animals from the trainers, they're also very clean with how they know that they're here as a conduit. It's just like a transition phase. So they embody that energy of that these dogs are just, we're going to pass you on to something more permanent. We are just a temporary stop. So they actually embody that energy. Otherwise, they'd end up with 400 dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is a deeply personal journey. And some people, I went through something like 30 greyhounds, and then we had one dog come in, and I just went, oh no. From the moment I set eyes on her, I knew. And I still went through the process of, 6 weeks of rehabilitation, and then went to send the information to the website and load it up to put her out for the adoption. And the first phone call I got, I went, oh, I can't do this. And I rang the lady. I said, take her off. I'll adopt her. But she told me, she actually told my partner at the time, I'm actually here for you guys. I'm here to be with you. And we're like, no, that's not part of the deal. That's not. Whereas all the other dogs, there was just no tug. There was no sense of that anywhere in their world. They were totally fine. But this one particular dog, it had a very different, she was very dominant with putting that thought and that awareness into both my partner and Mai's head at the time. It's like, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. You can try and put me up on the website all you like. I'm not going. So that was a very different journey then to go through. Don't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Susie, something you said, because you're talking about Savannah, are you, with the failed fostering?
Right.
So I actually don't see that as a failed foster.
A delayed foster.
Yeah. This is the thing. If we don't have attachment, we don't pour all of our stories and our emotions and our concoctions onto these animals and the relationships. You were willing to be in the question. You could see, you were aware that she wasn't happy with your traveling schedule, and you were also present and kind enough to go, okay, well, let's find another alternative.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, you are correct. In that sense, I did adopt her from the shelter. So I was supposed to be a foster first. And I don't know how long that lasted, 3 weeks maybe. I did adopt her then. But yes, it took over a year before that was really clear, and maybe that's also the time she needed, because she had some really interesting behavior things going on. She was very high strung. And so I think it actually kind of took her a year to calm herself down, her nerves down. And Charlie actually also came in while she was still with me, and he helped her also tremendously. So, so that's another thing too. You can have a permanent dog in your household or another animal, and you could still choose to foster if that's something you would like to do. Of course, if you have an animal that's aggressive towards other dogs, that might not be working, but those are also options which can be very, very helpful and successful, because oftentimes an animal can really take a cue from another animal so much easier than from you. Like when I first got Savannah out of the shelter, she could not lay down. I don't know what was happening with her, but she couldn't lay down. She could never relax enough to lay down. She would sit at most. And then even at night, every time I peeked and looked, she was in a crate, because, that's what I wanted to do. And she would sit in her crate, like she would not lay down. So, she was that over the top with her nerves, and it took a long time. But when Charlie came, he was the opposite. He was just a chill pill, he was like Mr. Happy-go-lucky, kind of like la la la, I'll fall asleep. And when she saw him laying down, like really just sprawling out, like laying down and going, oh, she went, you could really see her processing that, like, what is that, So it can just also be such a contribution to have another animal in the household that you have permanently, or have two fosters too. There's so many options to that. And yeah, like you said, Viv, it's a definite, very personal journey, and you have to see if it's right for you or not. But one thing I do know is there are a shit ton of rescue organizations and shelters out there that would love to have more fosters. So if
Mm.
it's anywhere in your world that could be something that you would consider, please at least try it, at least give it a shot, and see for yourself
Mm.
if that works for you. And it's not just for dogs and cats, it could be rabbits, it could be horses. I mean, literally anything you want. It could be probably even birds. I'm sure there are organizations and shelters that have any type of animal that you would love to foster available for that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and this may or may not be the best approach, but I'm going to say it because it's pinging. It's like if you are somebody that's wanting to try something on for size, you're not sure if you can commit to full time of caring for a cat or a dog or a horse or something. Fostering can be a great way to try it on because you've got an out. Whoever you fostered from, if it doesn't work out, you can always take them back to the original, well, you should be able to always take them back from the foster family, wherever they've come from. And you know that they're going to find a home eventually anyway. So, whether it's, like I say, I think the shortest one we had was probably 2 weeks, but the longest we had was about 12, 13, 14 months. But he was particularly damaged. He took a lot longer, like Savannah, he took a lot longer to decompress. And sometimes just giving them space to discover what it is to be a dog, that's all they need. Sure, they need food and some care and some introduction, but a lot of the times, like you were saying with Charlie and Savannah, they just need that space. So could you just afford the space for that animal? Have you got a nice garden or, a home that could welcome something temporarily? And that way you can test the kids out. Are they really going to commit to looking after this animal, and there are many, many benefits. And if you know that fostering is not for you, then, you find out. So
Well, and if you end up loving that particular animal so much, then you can become a foster failure and adopt.
and join the ranks.
Join the ranks of foster failures, exactly. But I think actually, Viv, I think that's a brilliant thing to really get to know you with an animal as well. I think that's a brilliant thing. Why not do something like that to really see, like, is this for me? I think that is that's a very cool way to approach something like that. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. Like we said, this is not like you're promising something here that you're not keeping. It's basically, as a foster, you have you have exactly that. Well, one thing I do want to ask too, so how was it in your foster situation? Did they pay for the food, or did you have to pay for that? Or is that also, like, I don't remember how that was in our shelter, but
Yeah, I think obviously different associations have different methods because the group that I fostered through, they relied heavily on donations. So if they got bags of food or, blankets, beds, anything, money towards vet bills, that type of thing, they did whatever they could. They'd send you home with a dog and you'd have a big bag of biscuits, a kibble or whatever you call it. I chose to feed them other food, and I was more than happy to do that out of my own pocket. That was just something that I wanted to do. So different adoption agencies have different things. So, but for these guys, it heavily depended on money coming in, basically. So they do their best to support their fosters because they know it's coming out of their own pocket. So all the vet bills are covered. Anything that happens to the animal, that's all under the fostering group. So, yeah. So if you are interested, just look into the type of dog that you would like to foster, because, I took greyhounds on. They're very quiet and placid. Other people do Labradors, German Shepherds. There's a whole plethora out there of different types of rescue groups for particular breeds of dogs too. So, if there's a particular breed of dog that you like, Susie and I talked about this in the last live in regards to what animal would actually suit your lifestyle and your home and your domestic situation. If you're living in a flat, please don't think about, fostering a border collie or something that needs to be outside and running around. So set yourself up for success in that respect. If you are looking at fostering, what kind of dog would actually match your lifestyle, your energy levels, your time frames, your family? So yeah. And know that the foster dogs, like you said earlier, Susie, they can only rescue as many dogs as there are foster families for them. So, that kind of puts a number on how many dogs can be, or animals can be, rehomed, because like you say, I think anybody that fosters, they know that fosters are short in numbers.
Yeah.
Mm.
And actually, if you want to listen to us again next week, we are talking about what animal is the right one for me, basically as an idea of looking at what actually could work for you. And so if you're not clear on that, please come for that one too. We give you a few tools and things to play with.
Thank you, Susie Godsey.
Thank you, Viv. That was really fun.
Thank you, Animal Kingdom, for your contribution.
And thank you, everyone, for being here and watching, and also later on.
Bye.